The Grand Assembly Hall on Station Velar was the most beautiful room in the galaxy. That was what everyone said. The ceiling rose so high that clouds actually formed near the top. Light came from crystals that floated in the air without any support. The floor was made from stone taken from 100 different worlds, each piece polished until it shone like water. Admiral Park Deho did not care about any of this. He sat at the human delegation's table and watched the aliens around him with tired eyes. 3 years of war had aged him. His hair had turned gray. His face had new lines. But his mind was still sharp, and right now, his mind was telling him something was very wrong. Captain Yunhana sat beside him. She was younger, with quick eyes that missed nothing. She'd have been his second-in-command for 5 years, and she knew him well enough to see his worry. "They are taking too long," she whispered. Park nodded slightly. The council members had been talking among themselves for almost an hour. 12 species, 12 ambassadors, and not one of them had looked at the human delegation with anything like respect. Finally, Councillor Tevlan stood up. He was Marathi, tall and thin, with skin like pale blue ice. He was over 300 years old, and he led the Galactic Council with the confidence of someone who had seen civilizations rise and fall. "We have reached our decision," Tevlan said. His voice filled the hall without effort. "The terms for peace between humanity and the Varathi Empire are as follows." Park leaned forward. His people had fought hard for this moment. They had held the line against the Varathi for 3 terrible years. They had lost ships, stations, and good people. But they had not broken. They had pushed back until the Varathi agreed to talk. This was supposed to be their reward. Humanity will surrender the colony worlds of New Bristol and Kensington to Varathi control. Tevlan read from a floating screen. Humanity will pay reparations of 12 trillion credits to the Varathi Empire over the next 50 years. Humanity will reduce its military fleet by 60% and submit to annual inspections by council observers. The hall was silent. Park felt Captain Yoon go stiff beside him. Tevlan continued. "In exchange, the Varathi Empire will cease all military action against human territories." Park waited. Surely there was more. Surely the Varathi would have to give something too. They had started this war. They had attacked human colonies without warning. They had killed millions. But Tevlan simply put down the screen and looked at the human delegation with what might have been a smile. "These terms are final," he said. "We expect humanity to sign within the week." Park stood up slowly. Every eye in the hall turned to him. "Counselor," he said, keeping his voice calm, "I want to make sure I understand. What must the Varathi give up?" Tevlan blinked. "Give up?" "Yes, we must surrender worlds. We must pay money. We must destroy our own ships. What must the Varathi do?" Ambassador Krill, the Varathi representative, let out a sound like grinding rocks. It was laughter. He was massive, covered in dark scales, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed red. "Humans are funny," Krill said. "You should be grateful we agreed to stop killing you." Park did not look at him. He kept his eyes on Tevlan. "Counselor, please answer my question." Tevlan spread his long hands. "The Varathi have agreed to peace. That is their contribution. Surely you understand, Admiral, that humanity is new to the galaxy, young. The Varathi Empire has existed for 10,000 years. There must be balance." "Balance," Park repeated. "Yes, the strong and the weak cannot be treated the same. This is simply how things are." Captain Yoon grabbed Park's arm. Her fingers were tight enough to hurt. "Sir," she whispered, "this was never about peace. They decided the terms before we even arrived." Park knew she was right. He had suspected it from the beginning. The council had never seen humans as equals. To them, humanity was just another young species to be managed, controlled, and kept in its place. He looked around the hall. The other ambassadors were watching with amusement, curiosity, or boredom. Not one of them seemed to think anything was wrong. This was normal to them. This was how the galaxy worked. Park took a deep breath. "Councilor Tevlon," he said, "I thank you for your time. The human delegation will be leaving now." Tevlon frowned. "Leaving? To discuss the terms with your government?" "No, leaving. We reject your terms." The hall went quiet. Even Krill stopped laughing. "You cannot reject them," Tevlon said slowly. "These terms were decided by the full council. They are fair and reasonable." "They are neither," Park said. "You ask us to surrender worlds our people died to protect. You ask us to pay for a war we did not start. You ask us to weaken ourselves so the Varathi can attack again whenever they choose. And you offer us nothing. We offer you peace. No, you offer us slavery with extra steps." Tevlon's pale face flushed darker blue. "You are being emotional, Admiral. This is why humans cannot be trusted with serious matters. You are too young, too hot-headed, too proud?" Park asked. "Yes, we are proud. We are proud of every soldier who died holding the line. We are proud of every family who lost someone but did not give up. And we are too proud to accept terms that spit on their sacrifice." He turned and walked toward the exit. Captain Yoon fell into step beside him, along with the rest of the human delegation. "Admiral Park," Tevlon called, "if you leave now, there will be no more talks. The council will not invite you back." Park stopped at the door. He turned and looked at the council one last time. "Then I suppose we have nothing more to say to each other." He walked out. The doors closed behind him with a soft sound. In the hall, Krill burst out, laughing again. "Foolish creatures. They will come crawling back within days. They have no choice." Tevlon nodded slowly, but something cold had settled in his stomach. He had dealt with hundreds of species over his long life. He knew what desperation looked like, what fear looked like, what bluffing looked like. Admiral Park had not looked desperate, afraid, or like he was bluffing. He had looked like a man who had already made his decision long ago. Outside, as they walked back to their shuttle, Captain Yoon finally spoke. "What happens now, sir?" Park looked out at the stars through the station's windows. Somewhere out there, billions of humans were waiting to hear what had happened. They would be angry. They would be hurt. But they would not be surprised. "Now," Park said quietly, "we show them what happens when you push humans too far." "And what is that?" Park smiled. It was not a happy smile. "We leave, and we let them discover how much they needed us." The shuttle doors opened, and the human delegation stepped inside. Behind them, the Grand Assembly Hall continued its business, already forgetting the small drama that had just occurred. They would remember soon enough. 3 weeks passed, then 4. The Galactic Council waited for the humans to come back. They always came back. Every young species eventually learned its place, but the humans did not come. Counselor Tevlon sat in his private office and stared at his communication screen. He had sent 12 messages to Earth, 12 carefully worded invitations to return to the peace talks, 12 reminders that the Council's patience was not unlimited. He had received no reply, not even a simple acknowledgement. "They are being childish," he muttered to himself. "They will break soon." But somewhere deep inside, he was not so sure. On Earth, in a building that had no name on any map, General Cho Yunbai stood before a room full of military commanders. She was small, barely tall enough to meet the height requirements when she joined the service 40 years ago. But no one who looked in her eyes ever made the mistake of thinking she was weak. "Operation Silent Thunder begins today," she said. "I trust everyone knows their part." The commanders nodded. They had been preparing for this for years, ever since it became clear that the Council would never treat humanity fairly. Director Baek Joon-ki, head of human intelligence, stepped forward. He was thin, with a face that could have been made of stone for all the emotion it showed. "During the peace talks, our agents completed their work," Baek said. "We now have full maps of Council and Varathi intelligence networks. We know their secrets, their weaknesses, and their fears. More importantly, they do not know we know. And our position?" General Cho asked. "Strong. Stronger than they realize. The Council thinks we are desperate. They think we fought the Varathi to a draw through luck. They are wrong." Cho nodded. "Then let us teach them the truth. Begin the withdrawal." The orders went out that night. They were not dramatic orders. There were no declarations of war, no threats, no angry speeches. Just quiet instructions to millions of humans spread across the galaxy to come home. Within days, human merchant ships stopped arriving at alien stations. Human engineers packed their tools and left Council projects half-finished. Human doctors closed their clinics on border worlds and boarded transports back to Earth. Human teachers, workers, artists, and scientists simply vanished from the places they had been welcome guests. At first, no one noticed. Humans made up less than 2% of the galaxy's population. What difference could they possibly make? The Mirathi colony of Velos 3 was the first to find out. A plague had broken out there 6 months ago. It was a strange disease, one that attacked the nervous system and caused terrible pain. Mirathi doctors had struggled to understand it, but the human medical team stationed there had made progress. They had developed a treatment that eased the symptoms. They had been close to a cure. Now the human doctors were gone, and the plague was spreading. Governor Talvin sent urgent messages to the Council. He needed help. He needed the human doctors back. His people were dying. The Council told him to be patient. Human doctors were not special. Mirathi doctors could handle it, but Mirathi doctors could not handle it. The disease was too strange, too new. Within 2 weeks, the death count had doubled. Within a month, entire cities were under quarantine. Talvin sent another message, this time directly to Earth. He begged. He pleaded. He offered anything they wanted. He received no reply. Meanwhile, the Varathi were celebrating. Ambassador Krill had returned home as a hero. He had humiliated the humans. He had driven them away from the peace talks. The war would continue, and this time, the Varathi would crush them completely. Warlord Grathax gathered his fleets. He was the greatest military commander the Varathi had produced in 1,000 years, or so he liked to believe. He had never lost a battle. He would not lose now. "The humans have weakened themselves," he told his officers. "They have pulled back their merchants, their workers, their influence. They think isolation will protect them. They are fools. Isolation will starve them. We will strike before they recover." His officers cheered. The war drums began to beat again, but Director Baek, sitting in his office on Earth, watched the Varathi fleet movements with something close to amusement. "They are doing exactly what we expected," he told General Cho. "The defensive platforms? Ready. We installed them during the peace talks. The Varathi never even noticed. They were too busy laughing at us." Cho allowed herself a small smile. "And the Council?" "Starting to feel the pinch. 3 more species have reported economic trouble. The Katrani shipyards have shut down because they cannot get the rare metals the human miners supplied. The Voss trade network is collapsing because human cargo ships carried 30% of their goods. Only 30%? Officially. Unofficially, human ships also handled most of the difficult routes. The dangerous routes, the routes no one else wanted to fly. Without us, goods are not moving. Prices are rising. People are getting angry. Cho nodded slowly. This was the plan. Not war, not violence, just absence. Humans had spent 100 years making themselves useful. They had taken the jobs no one else wanted. They had gone to the places no one else would go. They had become the oil that kept the machine running smoothly. Now the oil was gone, and the machine was starting to grind. On Station Vila, Councillor Tevlon received another report. Food shortages on Ketron 4, medical crisis on Velos 3, trade disruptions in the Voss sector, industrial accidents at the Marathi orbital platforms. Coincidence, he told himself. None of this has anything to do with the humans. But the reports kept coming, and they all had one thing in common. Each crisis had started at a place where humans used to work. Tevlon finally called a private meeting with his oldest advisors. "Tell me the truth," he said. "How dependent are we on humanity?" The advisors looked at each other. No one wanted to speak. Finally, the eldest among them, a Marathi scholar named Velshin, stepped forward. "Very dependent," she said. "More than we realized. Humans are everywhere, Counselor. They are in our hospitals, our factories, our ships. They work harder than most species. They go to dangerous places. They solve problems others cannot solve. We never noticed because they never complained. They just worked, and now they've stopped working. Yes, and we are beginning to understand how much we needed them." Tevlon sat in silence for a long time. "This is their plan," he said at last. "They did not leave because they were angry. They left because they knew this would happen. What do we do?" Tevlon did not answer. He was thinking about Admiral Park's face when he walked out of the peace talks. That quiet confidence, that complete lack of fear. The humans had not been bluffing. They had been waiting. And now, 3 weeks into their silence, the galaxy was already starting to fall apart. Tevlon sent another message to Earth. This time, he did not demand. He asked politely, humbly, for the humans to please respond. Like all the others, it went unanswered. In her office, General Cho read the message and deleted it without a second thought. "How long do we wait?" Captain Yoon asked. She had been assigned to Cho's staff after returning from the failed peace talks. "As long as it takes," Cho replied. "They spend centuries looking down on us. They can spend a few months learning what life is like without us. And if they attack?" Cho's eyes went hard. "Then they will learn that looking down on humans was not their only mistake." Outside, the stars shone cold and distant. And across the galaxy, in 1,000 different places, beings of 100 different species were starting to ask the same question. Where did the humans go? They would find out soon enough. And they would not like the answer. 6 weeks after the humans walked away, the galaxy began to break. Station Kirill 7 was one of the largest trading posts in Council space. 50,000 beings lived there, buying and selling goods from 100 worlds. It was a place of noise, color, and endless movement. Now it was dark. Half the lights had failed. The air recyclers made strange sounds. And in the main market, the stalls were mostly empty. Merchant Kang Soo-mi walked through the station with a bag over her shoulder. She was one of the last humans here. Most had left weeks ago, but she had stayed to finish some business. Now she was leaving too. A Katrani shopkeeper called out to her as she passed. He was small and green, with too many eyes that all looked worried. "Human, wait. Please." Sumi stopped. She knew this shopkeeper. His name was Brel, and he had always been kind to her. "I am leaving, Brel. My ship goes in 1 hour." I know. Brel wrung his 4 hands together. "But please, before you go, can you tell me what is happening? The power systems, the food shipments, the communication networks, everything is failing. Why? Sumi looked at him for a long moment. She felt sorry for him. He was not a bad person. He had never looked down on humans or treated them poorly. But he had also never stood up when others did. Do you know who designed the power systems on this station? She asked. I never thought about it. Humans designed them. Humans built them. And humans maintained them. When something broke, a human engineer fixed it. When the systems needed updates, a human programmer wrote the code. Brell's many eyes blinked. What? But where are they now? Gone, all of them. They went home. But who will fix things? Who will keep the station running? Sumi shifted her bag to her other shoulder. I do not know, Brell. That is not our problem anymore. She started walking again. Brell did not follow. He just stood there, all his eyes wide with something that looked like fear. On the other side of the galaxy, Warlord Grathax was learning a similar lesson. His fleet had finally reached human space. 300 warships, the pride of the Varathi Empire. They were going to crush the humans once and for all. They were going to burn their worlds and take their resources. They were going to teach these young creatures what happened when you defied the natural order. The first human defense line was a small outpost near the border. Grathax expected it to fall in minutes. It did not fall. Instead, weapons he had never seen before opened fire from hidden platforms. Energy beams cut through Varathi shields like they were made of paper. Missiles appeared from nowhere, guided by systems too fast to counter. In 15 minutes, Grathax lost 40 ships. He ordered a retreat to regroup. His officers were shaken. This was not how the war was supposed to go. What were those weapons? His second-in-command demanded. I do not know, Grathax admitted. Our intelligence said nothing about new human weapons. Our intelligence was wrong. Grathax wanted to kill his second for that comment, but he knew it was true. They had underestimated the humans. They had laughed at them, mocked them, and assumed they would be easy to defeat. They had been very, very wrong. He sent a message to the council, demanding support. The council's response was cold and short. No support would be coming. The council could not afford another war. The Varathi would have to handle this themselves. Grathax read the message 3 times. He could not believe it. The council was abandoning them? But the council had its own problems. Councillor Tevlon stood before the full assembly, trying to maintain order. It was not easy. 12 species were shouting at each other, blaming each other, demanding answers. The Katrani shipyards have closed completely, the Katrani ambassador announced. We cannot get the materials we need. Human miners supplied most of our rare metals. Without them, we cannot build ships. The Voss trade network has collapsed, the Voss representative added. Human cargo ships handled our most difficult routes. No one else will take them. Goods are rotting in warehouses while people starve on distant worlds. The plague on Velos 3 has killed 50,000, a Mirathi official reported. Our doctors cannot stop it. The human doctors were close to a cure. Now that knowledge is lost. Tevlon raised his hands for silence. We must stay calm. We must find solutions. What solutions? The Katrani ambassador demanded. We need the humans. We need them back. Then invite them back. We have tried. They do not respond. They do not answer any messages. Engineer Lim Tae-yang was one of the last humans still working on a council project. He was on Station Miro, a massive construction platform where a new colony ship was being built. Or rather, had been being built. The project was now 6 months behind schedule. His supervisor, a Voss named Krellin, found him in the engineering bay. Lim, please. You cannot leave. You are the only one who understands the propulsion systems. Taeyang continued packing his tools. I am sorry, Krellin. I have enjoyed working with you. But my orders are clear. All humans are to return home. But the colony ship, 50,000 people are waiting for it. Families, children. They have nowhere else to go. Taeyang paused. He thought of those 50,000 people. He thought of the children who would grow up without a proper home because the ship was never finished. I'm sorry, he said again. Truly, I am. But where was this concern when my people were treated like lesser beings? Where was it when the council offered us terms that would have made us slaves? No one stood up for us then. No one said it was wrong. Krellin had no answer. Taeyang finished packing. He shook Krellin's hand one last time and walked away. The next day, the propulsion systems failed completely. No one knew how to fix them. The colony ship would never fly. Back on Earth, Director Beak presented his weekly report to General Cho. The Varathi offensive has stalled. They lost 60 ships in the first week. They are regrouping, but their fleet is damaged and their morale is broken. And the Council? Falling apart. 8 species are now in open conflict over resources. The Katrani are threatening to leave the Council entirely. The Voss are hoarding food supplies. The Marathi plague is spreading to other worlds. Cho nodded slowly. And the illegal arms sales? Beak allowed himself a small smile. The conquered species in Varathi space are rising up. They are using weapons that the Varathi bought from human black market dealers. Weapons that we knew about and allowed to flow through. The Varathi are fighting a war on 2 fronts now. They cannot win. Good. What about direct contact from the Council? 17 messages in the past week. Ambassador Krill himself sent one. He was begging. Begging? Yes. It seems he is not laughing anymore. Cho looked out the window at the night sky. Somewhere out there, millions of beings were suffering because of what humanity had done. She did not enjoy their pain. She took no pleasure in their fear. But she also remembered every insult, every dismissal, every time a human had been told they were too young, too emotional, too primitive to matter. They would matter now. The whole galaxy would know that humans mattered. Continue the operation, she said. No response to any messages. No contact of any kind. For how long? Until they learn. Until they truly understand what they did. And until they are ready to treat us as equals. Outside, stars burned in the endless dark. And across the galaxy, on 1,000 worlds and stations, beings who had never thought twice about humans were now thinking about nothing else. Where did they go? When would they come back? How could everything fall apart so quickly? The answers would come eventually, but they would not be the answers anyone wanted to hear. The silence continued, and with each passing day, the galaxy learned a little more about what it meant to lose something you never knew you needed. 10 weeks had passed since the humans walked away. The Galactic Council was dying. Councilor Tevlon called an emergency session. The Grand Assembly Hall, which had once been so beautiful, now showed signs of neglect. Some of the floating crystals had fallen and shattered. The climate systems were struggling. Even the lights seemed dimmer. 12 ambassadors sat at their tables, but they did not look like the proud leaders they had been 2 months ago. They looked tired, scared, desperate. We must do something, the Katrani ambassador said. His voice was raw from shouting. My people are starving. Our factories are closed. We have lost everything. We all have lost, the Voss representative replied bitterly. Do not act like your suffering is special. Enough. Tevlon slammed his hand on the table. The sound echoed through the hall. Fighting among ourselves will not help. We need to focus on the real problem. The humans, someone muttered. Yes, the humans. Tevlon stood up slowly. His old bones ached. His heart felt heavy. I have been thinking about what happened, about what we did, and I believe we made a terrible mistake. The hall went quiet. We treated humanity like children, Tevlon continued. We dismissed their concerns. We offered them peace terms that were designed to humiliate them. We laughed when they walked away. We thought they would come crawling back. He looked around at the other ambassadors. Some would not meet his eyes. They did not come back. And now we see the truth. Humanity was never weak. They were never primitive. They were patient. They were watching. They were waiting for us to show our true nature. And when we did, they simply left. What do you suggest? The Mirathi official asked. Should we apologize? Should we beg? Yes, Tevlon said simply. That is exactly what we should do. Ambassador Krill slammed all four of his fists on the table. Never. The Varathi do not beg. We do not apologize. The humans are the enemy. They must be destroyed. Tevlon turned to look at the Varathi ambassador. And how is that war going, Krill? How many ships has Warlord Grath Axe lost? How many of your conquered worlds have risen up against you? How close is your great empire to complete collapse? Krill's red eyes burned with hatred, but he had no answer. The war is over, Tevlon said. We lost, all of us. Not to human weapons or human soldiers, but to our own arrogance. We pushed them away, and now we must pay the price. He proposed sending a formal apology to Earth. A real apology, not a political game. An admission that the Council had been wrong. The vote failed. 8 ambassadors refused. They could not accept that humanity had beaten them. They could not swallow their pride. Tevlon watched the vote count and felt something die inside him. The council he had served for 200 years was destroying itself, and it could not even see what it was doing. That night, he received a secret message from 3 council species. The Katrani, the Voss, and the Mirathi wanted to approach Earth separately. They would bypass the council entirely. They would make their own deals with humanity. The council was already fracturing. 1 week later, a council delegation arrived at Earth. They were not there to apologize. They were there to demand. Ambassador Shin the Jun met them in a simple conference room in Geneva. He was young for a diplomat, only 42 years old. He had been chosen specifically because he represented the new generation of human leaders. The generation that had grown up knowing the galaxy looked down on them. He did not smile when the delegation entered. He did not offer refreshments or make small talk. He simply sat down and waited. The delegation leader was a Mirathi named Vertil. He had been chosen because he was aggressive and intimidating. He towered over the human, and he used every bit of his height to try to make Shin feel small. We are here to resolve this crisis, Vertil announced. Humanity has made its point. Now, it is time to return to your responsibilities. Shin raised an eyebrow. Our responsibilities? Yes. The galaxy depends on human workers, human traders, human expertise. You cannot simply abandon your role. I see. And what role is that, exactly? Vertil spread his hands. The role of support. The role of service. Humanity has always been the helper species. You do the jobs no one else wants. You go to the places no one else will go. This is your purpose. Shin was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his folder and pulled out a document. These are Earth's terms for resuming galactic relations, he said. You may read them. Vertil took the document. His face changed as he read. First confusion. Then disbelief. Then anger. This is impossible. You demand full recognition as an equal species. You demand reparations for the war. You demand that the Council publicly admit its bias. Yes, these terms are absurd. The council will never accept them. Shin stood up. He was not tall, but somehow he seemed to fill the room. "Then I suppose you should leave," he said. Vertil stared at him. "You cannot be serious. You are in no position to make demands. Your people are isolated. Your economy must be suffering. You need the galaxy as much as we need you. Do we?" Shin walked to the window and looked out at the city below. "Our economy is stable. Our people are fed. Our borders are secure. We have everything we need to survive. Can you say the same?" Vertil could not. "We are not being cruel," Shin continued. "We are not trying to punish you. We simply want what every species wants: respect, equality, the right to be treated as partners, not servants. If the council cannot accept that, then there is nothing more to discuss." The delegation left that afternoon. They reported back to the council that the humans were being unreasonable, that they were demanding too much, that they needed to be forced to accept reality. But more and more, council species were starting to wonder if maybe the humans were right. On Varathi Prime, Warlord Grathax faced his final defeat. His fleet had been destroyed. His conquered worlds had broken free. His own officers had turned against him. Blaming him for the disaster, they found him in his command room, alone, staring at a map of what had once been his empire. "The humans did this," he said to the officers who came to arrest him. "They planned this from the beginning. They let us buy weapons from their black market. They let us grow confident. And then they pulled the strings and watched us tear ourselves apart." "You lost the war," his second-in-command said. "You lost it before the first shot was fired." Grathax did not resist when they took him away. He was too tired, too broken. He had spent his whole life believing that strength was everything. Now he understood that there were other kinds of power, and the humans had mastered them all. Back on Station Vila, Councilor Tevlon sat alone in his office. He had just received word that 3 more species were leaving the council. The alliance that had governed the galaxy for 10,000 years was falling apart. His aide, a young Marathi named Valine, brought him a cup of warm drink. "What will you do, Counselor?" Tevlon stared at the cup without drinking. "I will go to Earth myself. Not as a representative of the council, just as myself. I will apologize. I will admit we were wrong, and I will ask for forgiveness. Will they listen? I do not know, but I have to try. Someone has to try." He looked out at the stars. "We treated them like children," he said quietly. "But they were never children. They were the adults in the room. We were the ones who were too immature to see it." Valine had no answer. She just stood there, watching her mentor prepare to humble himself before the species they had all once dismissed. The galaxy was changing. The old order was dying. And somewhere on Earth, in quiet rooms where decisions were made, humans were deciding what the new order would look like. They had waited a long time for this moment. They would not waste it. 4 months had passed since the humans walked away from the peace talks. The galaxy was not the same place anymore. The Varathi Empire existed only in name. Civil war had torn it apart. Warlord Grathax was dead, executed by his own officers who blamed him for everything. The species they had conquered for thousands of years were now free, and they had no interest in rebuilding the old order. The Galactic Council was dying. 8 species had left. The remaining 4 were fighting among themselves over what little power remained. The beautiful halls of Station Vila were half empty, and no one bothered to repair the broken crystals anymore. But something new was growing in the ruins. One by one, species had approached Earth directly. Not through the Council. Not with demands or arrogance. They came quietly, humbly, asking for simple trade agreements. Asking for help. And the humans, to the surprise of many, said yes. They did not demand impossible terms. They did not humiliate their former enemies. They simply asked for one thing: equality. Those who agreed found the humans to be fair partners. Human traders returned to their stations. Human doctors came back to their hospitals. Human engineers fixed the broken systems. Life began to return to normal. Normal. Those who refused found themselves alone in a galaxy that was moving on without them. Councillor Tevlon watched all of this from his office. He was no longer the head of the council. There was barely a council left to lead. But he still had his title, and he still had one task left to complete. He traveled to Earth, not with a delegation, not with guards or assistants, just himself, an old Mirathi carrying a burden of regret that weighed more than his thin body could bear. President Moonji Aite agreed to meet him, not in a grand hall or an official building, just a simple room in a simple house outside Seoul, where the president liked to go when he wanted to think. Tevlon entered the room and stopped. He had expected guards, protocols, formal procedures. Instead, he found only the president sitting at a wooden table, drinking tea. "Please, sit," Moon said, gesturing to a chair across from him. Tevlon sat. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "I do not know where to begin," Tevlon finally said. "Then let me help you." Moon poured a second cup of tea and pushed it toward his guest. "You came to apologize. So apologize." Tevlon looked at the tea. His hands were shaking slightly. "I am sorry," he said. His voice was rough with emotion. "I am sorry for what the council did, for how we treated your people, for the peace terms that were not peace at all, for the years of dismissal and disrespect, for all of it." Moon listened without interrupting. "We were arrogant," Tevlon continued. "We looked at humanity and saw only a young species. We did not see your strength, your patience, your ability to plan and wait and act when the moment was right. We were blind, and our blindness nearly destroyed everything." He finally met Moon's eyes. "I do not ask for forgiveness. I know we do not deserve it. I only ask for the chance to make things right. Not for the council. The council is dead. For my people. For the Mirathi, who are sick and struggling and have nowhere else to turn." Moon was quiet for a long time. He sipped his tea. He looked out the window at the mountains in the distance. "My grandfather fought in a war," he said finally. "Not a space war. A human war, long before we reached the stars. He told me something I have never forgotten. He said that the hardest thing about war is not winning. It is knowing what to do after you win." He turned back to Tevlon. "We have one counselor, not through violence, not through conquest. We won by showing the galaxy what happens when you underestimate humans. The question now is, what do we do with that victory?" "What do you want?" Tevlon asked. Moon smiled. It was a tired smile, but there was warmth in it. "We want what we have always wanted. Partnership, friendship, the chance to work together and build something better than what came before. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We do not want revenge. We just want to be seen as equals." "You are more than equals," Tevlon said. "After what you have done, you are the most powerful species in the galaxy. Power does not interest us. At least, not power over others. We want power with others. A galaxy where all species have a voice. Where the strong help the weak instead of crushing them. Where no one is dismissed because they are young or small or different." Tevlon felt something loosen in his chest. For the first time in months, he felt something like hope. Can such a galaxy exist? Only if we build it together. Moon stood up and offered his hand. Tevlon hesitated only for a moment. Then he took it. 1 month later, a new treaty was signed. It was not signed on Station Velar or in the halls of the Dead Council. It was signed on a space station that had been built by humans and aliens working together, a station that floated in neutral space and belonged to no one. The treaty dissolved the Galactic Council. In its place, it created the Galactic Assembly. Every species would have an equal voice. Every species would have equal rights. No one would be dismissed as too young or too primitive. No one would be forced to accept terms that violated their dignity. Admiral Park Daeho attended the signing ceremony. He was retired now, living quietly on Earth, but they had asked him to come to see the end of what he had started. Captain Yoon Hana stood beside him, watching the representatives of dozens of species put their marks on the document. "Was it worth it?" she asked quietly. Park thought about the question. He thought about the war, the peace talks, the insult that had pushed him to walk away, the months of silence and suffering that followed. "I do not know if it was worth it," he said. "Many people suffered. Many people died. The galaxy went through pain that could have been avoided if the Council had simply treated us fairly from the beginning." He watched as President Moon signed the treaty on behalf of humanity. "But we did not start this. We did not choose to be looked down upon. We only chose how to respond when they pushed us too far. And we responded by walking away, by letting them see what life was like without us, by giving them the chance to learn. And they learned. Some of them. Not all. There are still species that hate us. There are still beings who will never accept humans as equals. But enough of them learned. Enough of them understood. And that is enough to build something new." Yoon nodded slowly. She looked at the diverse crowd gathered to witness the signing. Marathi and Kitrani and Voss and a dozen others, all standing together. "What happens now?" she asked. Park smiled. It was the first real smile she had seen from him in years. "Now we do what humans have always done. We work, we build, we help, not because we have to, not because we want something in return, but because that is who we are. That is what makes us human." The ceremony ended. The assembly was born. And across the galaxy, on 1,000 worlds and stations, beings of 100 species began the long work of building a new future. Young aliens in schools everywhere learned about what had happened. They learned about the peace talks, the walkout, the silence, and the collapse. They learned about a species that had been dismissed and mocked and underestimated. And they learned the lesson that would echo through history for generations to come. Humanity walked away once. They could do it again. And next time, no one would survive the silence. It was a lesson the galaxy would never forget. In the simple room outside Seoul, long after the ceremony was over, President Moon sat alone with a fresh cup of tea. He looked at a picture on the wall. It showed Earth as seen from space, a small blue ball in an ocean of darkness. They had called humans young, primitive, unimportant. Now the whole galaxy knew better. And somewhere in the stars, Admiral Park looked out at the universe he had helped reshape, and he finally allowed himself to rest. The silence was over. The future had begun.